Okay, so what I want to talk about now is when sigil magic can go wrong. So when you mess it up. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to be careful of. Now, I'm going to reiterate the points I've made previously in this sigil magic series. When you're creating your sigils, you need to give them a purpose. You need to make sure that you're not incorporating other things into it and that your sigils are actually unique. And of course, don't get sigils mixed up with seals. So number one, what problems I've found in terms of people getting sigils confused with seals. So if you're talking about seals such as, essentially addresses to spirits, and 𝐒𝐤𝐿 is a good example, something like that. People will try to take imagery from seals. So they'll take different bits and pieces from books like this, and they'll think, oh, I quite like that, I quite like that, or I quite like this, quite like that, and they'll try and incorporate into their sigil magic. The problem is it's too similar to a seal that is already created in a book, and because a seal is designed to help you contact, is essentially an address for a spirit, what people are actually doing is if you're thinking about it being a telephone number or an address, the energy that they're empowering their seal with, the purpose that they're giving it, is getting confused with and attracting the attention of the spirit that the sigil that they were inspired by essentially attention is being brought to what you're doing. So instead of empowering your sigil, what you're actually doing is contacting the spirit that is associated with a sigil, with a seal that is similar to your sigil. I think that made sense. Too many seals and sigils talking about that in a sentence is just too much in there. So when you're talking about creating sigils, make sure that you know the difference between a seal and a sigil if you don't watch that video that I made about the difference. And also when it comes to incorporating other imagery into that, that's by far one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when it comes to sigil magic. And when it comes to incorporating things within their sigils, when you're creating a sigil, obviously you need to make sure that your sigil is unique for a reason, because you're going to be confusing the energy there if you start incorporating other things. So what mistakes I've seen people make is they've started incorporating religious iconography or runic alphabets and things like that within their sigils. Now the problem with that is that those things, they already have a purpose. They generally have multiple purposes, and there's already an energy current there. Now, some people think that they can tap into that energy current and that it will help the process along. In reality, what you're essentially doing is trying to fight the tide. You're creating a sigil, and your sigil is incorporating that and probably too much of that original symbol within your work, and that symbol and the energy current there is affecting your sigil in a negative way normally. Now, a good example of that, because of course we talked about corporate logos and creating sigils out of corporate logos, or creating sigils to act as corporate logos. Now, I helped a company design a sigil, and I made a massive mistake because I was quite young at the time. When it came to designing the sigil. The sigil was designed, in order to make money, for the business. So we designed a corporate logo, happens to be this corporate logo. And within that, because it was an electrical contractors, I thought that it would be a good idea to start incorporating symbology that's associated with electricity and that. So the omega sign, that kind of thing. We looked at books, symbol diagrams that represent component parts on electrical circuits, that kind of thing. I thought I was being quite clever when it came to incorporating that into the logo and into the sigil. The problem is it confused the energy. So although the company did generate money the big problem that I found when I later revisited it and tried to diagnose what was going on, because the corporation ended up enslaving the owners and the people that worked there. They always wanted more. That was it. More money. It was designed to bring money in. So the way it did that would be to bleed and rip it out of the people that it was working there, working them too hard. Lots of problems when it comes to that. And the thing that I incorporated, of course, in the logo, if you look at the logo, is this diagram, which is the symbol for a 2-pole switch. However, that diagram is too similar to this diagram, which essentially is this, which is called the black sun, which is a bottomless black hole of nothingness that just sucks everything in. So combining essentially this symbol into the sigil that I created for this company, yes, it was bringing money in. However, it was literally sucking it in like a black hole from any means. Anything that it could get it from, it was doing it, to the point where, you know, it wasn't operating in a particularly helpful way. So we had to redesign things and change things about a bit. So obviously the problem with that is that this already has a lot of energy, and it is already a thing, essentially. It's already to a certain extent, I wouldn't say an entity, but there's an extremely strong energy current. And you incorporating that into your logo that is brand new, that has got maybe several thousand people locally focusing on it and understanding it, compared to this, which has been in existence for thousands of years, probably not a good idea. So don't take existing symbology and think you're being clever by giving it a focal point within the sigils that you're creating, because it can very often backfire. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work. What more often the case is that it's not going to work. You're going to add an extra element in this. So for example, incorporating the black hole into a business that's designed to make money means that the ways in which the money is coming to the business isn't necessarily the ways in which you would want it to. Also, if the business can make more money by an employee working late, or, you know, this, that, and the other, then the energy there is going to be going towards making that manifest. So it's one of those things, again, when it comes to magic and energy and manifestation, the manifestation of magic. What you're wanting and what you're essentially aiming for, your purpose, the reason for your spell, that thing that you want to manifest is going to manifest in the easiest form. So when you've got something like that with these two energies that are affecting this spell, because sigil work is spell work, and when you're creating something like a corporate logo as a sigil and designing it to do something that is spell work, then it will have bad effects. So when it comes to working and taking symbology from spirit seals, taking things from, you know, quite famous designs, or even runes, runic alphabets, each rune in a runic alphabet has different meanings and energies associated with it. So if you're adding that to it, then it's probably not such a good idea. The reason I like the kind of automatic writing and the squiggles, the way in which I do those sorts of sigils, is because they are all unique, and it is literally very easy to create those very, very quickly. Obviously, when it comes to corporate logos and stuff like that, and the sort of thing that you want to print on a t-shirt or put out there, you're going to want them to be aesthetically pleasing. So, you know, squiggles on a t-shirt doesn't necessarily look as great, and they're a lot more difficult to translate and turn into logos as well if you've got a whole massive page of squiggly kind of random things, you know. Another thing is that, of course, when it comes to the design, not having a strong enough intention behind what you're doing, because even if you want to create the artwork and create the charging station, a bit like we did with the box or with the jar charging station. That is really designed to open a doorway and absorb energy through opening a doorway and charge the object that's in the box. If you don't know about that, then obviously watch the previous video in this playlist in our Sigil Magic series. But essentially, you know, that's about as bland as you want to be when it comes to that, because obviously I've not given it a specific purpose. Its only purpose really is to be a doorway and absorb energy so that I can store it and transmute it and turn it into whatever I want later. If you're talking about creating sigils and burning them, or empowering them and focusing on them, that kind of a thing, then what you're wanting to do is be very, very specific as to what the sigil is designed to do and not change it all the time. Okay, so you're going to have certain sigils. If I create a sigil to bring money into my life, I'm not going to create that same sigil or use that same sigil and focus on that to bring love into my life. Obviously, it's not going to work like that. Each sigil needs to be unique. People that often use sigil magic quite a lot and like that approach will often have books that they can draw their sigils in, and they'll literally have a book full of sigils. They might have one to manifest a new car. They might have one to manifest more money or less debt or a holiday or luck or something like that, which they will open that book to the right page. If you've got one of those photo album type books, then you can draw them on little pieces of paper like this, stick them in and label them as to what they are. Of course, another thing that I find people make the mistake of is getting their sigils confused. Either they're too similar, or if they are the kind of squiggly mess type sigils like I like to use, then not labeling them as to what they are. So imagine if you're wanting to use your money sigil and you end up accidentally bringing out your love sigil. Then you might end up start manifesting love when actually you wanted money because you ended up picking up the wrong one and working with the wrong one. Okay, so a good idea is, I quite like to use photograph paper or photograph sized paper and stick them in photo albums and then label the back as to what the sigil's for, maybe the date that I made it on, you know, as much information. The good thing about using that kind of paper is that it's thick, so you can literally write the date you made it, what was going through your mind when you made it, that kind of a thing. You know, it does help keep records with things like that. So hopefully I've given you something to think about when it comes to sigil magic. If you have any questions and want to talk to us directly, and you're on Facebook, then please join the Facebook, the Witchcraft Live Facebook group. We do live videos every week pretty much in there about different subjects to do with magic and occultism. If you're interested in personal mentorship and you want to learn magic in general and you want a mentor to teach you, then check out the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon page, because we are offering that service through that for only something like £3 a month. It's not very much, so there we go. Thanks for listening, and hopefully I've helped you in some way, or at least just amused you.